private dining room at Laurent is all dark wood and soft lighting, expensive wine, plates that cost more than my monthly car payment. A table of 12, executives, investors, board members, spouses, and me, standing near the wall, hands folded, silent. I'm always there, but never really there. That's the job. Personal driver doesn't just mean driving, it means being available, being present, being invisible until needed. Richard Hartwell, billionaire tech CEO, my employer, my wife's boss, is in the middle of telling a story. Something about a negotiation in Singapore. He's animated, confident. The table hangs on every word. Then someone asks a question about logistics, how he managed the time zones, the travel schedule, the details. Richard waves dismissively. Oh, I don't handle that. Michael does. He gestures toward me without looking. Don't mind him. He's basically furniture. The table erupts. Laughter. Genuine laughter. The kind that comes when someone with power says something that gives everyone else permission to feel superior. James Chen, the CFO, nearly spits his wine. Furniture. That's perfect. Margaret Yates, board member, wipes her eyes. Richard, you're terrible. David Park, lead investor, slaps the table. I'm stealing that. Basically furniture. That's brilliant. I don't move, don't react. Just stand there with the same neutral expression I've maintained for 3 years. Professional, composed, furniture. Then I hear it. The sound that lands differently than all the others. My wife's laugh. Sarah is sitting 3 seats from Richard. She works as his executive assistant. Has for 5 years. She knows how hard I work, knows the hours, knows what this job requires. And she's laughing, loudest of all. Head thrown back. Tears in her eyes. Completely committed to the joke. Not nervous laughter, not polite laughter. Real laughter. The kind that says, I'm on this side of the table. With the people who matter, not with you. Richard continues his story. The moment passes. Conversation flows to other topics. Stock prices, market trends, the upcoming acquisition that's consuming everyone's attention. I stand there, silent, professional, absorbing every word like I've absorbed every word for 3 years. They think I'm furniture. They think I don't matter. They think silence means submission. They're wrong on all 3 counts. The dinner ends at 10:47 p.m. I bring the car around. Richard and Sarah slide into the back seat, still laughing about something David said. I drive them both home. Richard to his penthouse in Tribeca, Sarah and me to our apartment in Queens. The drive is 43 minutes. Sarah doesn't speak to me once, just types on her phone, reviewing tomorrow's schedule, responding to emails, living in Richard's world even when she's physically in mine. I drop Richard off first. Good night, Michael, he says. Not thank you. Not see you tomorrow. Just acknowledgement of my existence before I disappear back into irrelevance. Good night, sir. Sarah moves to the front seat for the drive home. Still doesn't speak, just keeps typing. I don't bring up the furniture comment. Don't ask why she laughed. Don't say anything at all. Because I learned something important over the past 3 years. Words reveal what you think. Silence reveals what you know. And what I know, what they don't know, is about to change everything. Before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe, and hit hype to boost this episode. Drop a comment below with your city or country. I'm always curious where viewers are joining from. Chapter 1. The Invisible Man. I became Richard Hartwell's personal driver 3 years ago. The job came through Sarah, who'd worked as his executive assistant for 2 years before I came on board. Richard's driver just quit, she told me over dinner one night. No notice, just walked out after some argument about overtime. He needs someone reliable, professional. I mentioned you. I'd been driving for a luxury car service at the time, black cars, corporate clients, airport runs, decent pay but unpredictable hours and no real benefits. What's the job? I asked. Personal driver, full-time. Salary, not hourly, benefits. Consistent schedule, mostly. He needs someone from 7 a.m. to whenever he's done for the day. Could be 6 p.m., could be midnight, depends on the day. What's he like? Sarah paused, chose her words carefully. Brilliant, demanding. He built TechVista from nothing to a $3 billion company in 8 years. He expects excellence, but he's fair. If you do your job well, he'll respect that. What she didn't say, he treats service workers like they're part of the infrastructure, like the elevator or the air conditioning. Necessary, but not worth noticing. I took the job anyway. The pay was nearly double what I was making. The benefits were excellent. And consistent hours meant I could actually plan my life instead of living on call for the car service. The first day, Richard laid out exactly what he expected. I need you here at 7 a.m. every day, unless I tell you otherwise. You'll drive me to the office, to meetings, to dinners, to the airport. Sometimes I'll need you to wait. Sometimes I'll dismiss you and call when I'm ready. Your phone stays on 24/7. If I call, you answer. If I text, you respond within 5 minutes. Clear? Yes, sir. I don't need conversation. I need competence. I'll be making calls, reviewing documents, preparing for meetings. Your job is to drive safely and quietly. Don't interrupt. Don't comment. Don't ask questions unless I ask you something first. Understood. Sarah speaks very highly of you. Don't make me regret hiring you. I won't, sir. And I didn't. For 3 years, I was exactly what he wanted. Professional, discreet, reliable, silent. I picked him up at 7 a.m., drove him to Tech Vista headquarters in Midtown, waited while he worked, drove him to lunch meetings, investor presentations, board meetings, dinners with executives, late-night sessions with engineers working on product launches. I heard everything. Every phone call, every conversation, every negotiation, argument, celebration, crisis. He talked about acquisitions while I drove him to the airport, discussed quarterly earnings while I sat outside restaurants, debated product strategy while I navigated crosstown traffic, conducted conference calls on speaker while I maintained exactly 3 car lengths from the vehicle ahead. I heard the deal that nearly fell apart in 2021, the product launch disaster in 2022, the CFO scandal that almost tanked the stock, the acquisition talks that had been ongoing for 6 months. I heard everything because I was furniture, and furniture doesn't have ears, doesn't have memory, doesn't matter, except furniture doesn't usually have a law degree. I'd passed the bar 7 years ago. I worked as a junior associate at a corporate firm for 3 years before burning out. The hours were brutal, 80, 90, sometimes 100 hours a week. The work was mindless, document review, research, formatting contracts. The pay was good, but not worth the cost to my health, my marriage, my life. So I quit, took a few months off, started driving to clear my head and pay bills while I figured out what came next. Then what came next turned into 3 years. Because the money was good, the hours were manageable, and the work didn't follow me home. I never told Richard about the law degree, never mentioned it to Sarah either. She knew I'd gone to law school, but I'd told her I never finished. Easier than explaining why I'd walked away from a career everyone assumed was prestigious and successful. Being a driver meant I could leave work at work, could sleep at night, could have a life that wasn't consumed by billable hours and client demands. But the legal training never left. I still thought like a lawyer, still noticed contract language, still understood deal structures, still caught the implications of things Richard said on calls, like the Meridian acquisition. Tech Vista was buying Meridian Systems, a smaller competitor with valuable patents and a strong customer base. The deal was worth $800 million. It had been in negotiation for 6 months, delayed by regulatory approval, contract disputes, and stockholder concerns. I'd heard every stage of it, every call with lawyers, every argument with the Meridian CEO, every late-night strategy session where Richard and his team worked through sticking points. And I'd noticed something odd 3 months ago, something Richard's lawyers had implemented, probably as a standard precaution but without realizing who they were asking. They needed a trustee, someone independent who could hold certain documents and approvals during the regulatory review period, someone not directly employed by Tech Vista or Meridian, someone with legal authority to sign off on specific conditions. Richard's lead attorney, Patricia Vance, had approached me directly. Michael, we need someone to serve as a document trustee for the Meridian acquisition. It's a formality, regulatory requirement. You'd hold certain signed documents, release them when specific conditions are met. It's administrative, but it requires someone with legal credentials. Sarah mentioned you went to law school. I'd been surprised she knew. I did. Passed the bar 7 years ago. Perfect. Would you be willing to serve in this capacity? There's a small stipend, $5,000. Shouldn't take more than a few hours of your time total, mostly just signing documents and holding them in escrow. I'd agreed. Why not? $5,000 for paperwork? Easy money. I signed the trustee agreement, received copies of the documents I was holding, read through them carefully, old habits from my associate days. The documents were standard. Signed agreements from both parties. Regulatory approval certificates, escrow instructions. My role was simple. Hold these documents until specific conditions were met, then release them to finalize the deal. The conditions were technical, regulatory approval by the FTC, board approval from both companies, shareholder approval from both companies, legal verification that no material changes had occurred in either company's financial status, And one more condition, buried in the fine print, trustee certification that all parties acted in good faith throughout the transaction period. That last one was interesting. Unusual. Most escrow arrangements didn't include a good faith certification from the trustee. It gave me discretion, authority to evaluate whether the parties had been honest and forthright. I'd asked Patricia about it during the signing. The good faith clause, what's the standard for that? Standard legal interpretation. Did either party materially misrepresent their position? Did anyone engage in fraud or deception? If everything was above board, you sign off. If you have concerns, you flag them. It's a protection mechanism. Who do I flag concerns to? Me, but it's unlikely to be an issue. This is just belt and suspenders from the regulators. I'd nodded, signed, filed the documents in a secure folder at home, and forgot about it, because I was furniture, and furniture doesn't think about the importance of what it's holding. Until last night, when Richard pointed at me and said, "Don't mind him, he's basically furniture," and everyone laughed, including my wife. I didn't sleep well after that dinner, lay awake thinking about 3 years of being invisible, 3 years of hearing everything while mattering to no one, 3 years of my wife choosing proximity to power over partnership with me. Around 3 a.m., I got up, pulled out the trustee documents, read through them again, and realized something Richard's lawyers might have forgotten. Furniture doesn't have discretion. Furniture doesn't evaluate good faith. Furniture doesn't have the authority to stop an $800 million deal. But I wasn't furniture. I was a trustee, with legal authority and discretion, and I just witnessed Richard Hartwell treat me with contempt in front of his entire inner circle, including my wife, who'd laughed along. Was that good faith? Was that the kind of character I was supposed to certify? I went back to sleep around 4 a.m. No decisions made, just awareness settling into place. Now my phone rang at 8:12 a.m. Unknown number. I answered. "Is this Michael Chen?" "Speaking." "Mr. Chen, this is Patricia Vance. We need to talk. Immediately." Chapter 2. The furniture doesn't just stand there. Patricia Vance's voice was different from every other interaction we'd had. The previous calls had been routine, professional but casual. "Just need your signature here. Quick administrative question. Standard procedure." This call was neither routine nor casual. "Mr. Chen, I'm calling about your role as trustee in the Meridian acquisition." "What about it?" "We need to finalize the transaction today. The regulatory approvals came through overnight. Both boards are meeting this morning. Shareholders have already approved. Everything is in place. We just need your certification to release the escrow documents." I glanced at the clock. 8:13 a.m. The deal was moving fast, suspiciously fast for something that had dragged on for 6 months. "What's the rush?" Brief pause. "The market conditions are favorable. Both parties want to close before anything changes. Standard practice in M&A. "And you need my certification?" "Yes, the good faith certification. It's the final piece. Can you come to our office this morning? We have the documents ready for your signature." "What time?" "As soon as possible. 9 a.m.? Less than an hour. They really were in a hurry. "I can be there at 10. Another pause. Longer this time. I could hear her controlling her frustration. "Mr. Chen, I want to emphasize how time-sensitive this is. Every hour of delay costs both companies money. Market conditions." "I understand. I can be there at 10. "Fine. 10 a.m. Don't be late." She hung up. I sat there, coffee cooling in my hand, understanding exactly what had just happened. They'd forgotten about me. The trustee arrangement had been filed away months ago as a minor administrative detail. Now, with everything else aligned, they'd realized the deal couldn't close without my signature. And they were panicking. Because I wasn't answering my phone at 7 a.m. like I did when Richard called, wasn't jumping to accommodate their timeline, wasn't behaving like furniture. Sarah was already gone. She left at 6:30 every morning to prepare Richard's day. I texted her. "Not feeling well, won't be driving today, taking a personal day." She replied within 2 minutes. "Seriously? Today? Richard has back-to-back meetings. He can use another driver." "He doesn't like other drivers. He's used to you." "He'll manage." No response to that. She was probably already arranging a replacement and complaining to Richard about my unreliability. I showered, dressed in a suit, something I hadn't worn in 3 years. Found the trustee documents in my file cabinet. Read through them one more time. The good faith clause was clear. Trustee shall certify that all parties acted in good faith and with honest dealing throughout the transaction period. Good faith, honest dealing. I thought about last night. About standing against a wall while Richard pointed at me. Basically furniture. About the laughter. About Sarah's face, tears streaming, completely committed to the joke at my expense. Was that good faith? Was that honest dealing? Maybe not in the transaction itself. Richard probably hadn't lied to Meridian or misrepresented TechVista's financials. The deal was probably clean from a business perspective, but the clause didn't say good faith in the transaction. It said good faith throughout the transaction period. And Richard had appointed me as trustee during that period. Had I been treated with good faith, with honest dealing, or had I been treated like furniture? I arrived at Morrison & Blake at 9:58 a.m., 2 minutes early, professional. The receptionist looked flustered. Mr. Chen, they're waiting for you in conference room A, this way. She led me down a hallway to a large conference room. Floor-to-ceiling windows, massive table, and 6 people sitting around it. Patricia Vance, Richard Hartwell, David Park, the lead investor I'd seen last night, 2 other lawyers I didn't recognize, and Sarah. Everyone stood when I entered. That was new. Furniture doesn't get standing greetings. Michael, thank you for coming. Patricia's voice was warm, professional, carefully controlled. Please sit. Can we get you coffee? Water? I'm fine. I sat. They sat. The power dynamic was immediately clear. They needed something from me, and they knew it. Patricia slid a document across the table. This is the certification we discussed. Very straightforward. Just confirms that, to your knowledge, both parties acted in good faith throughout the transaction period. Sign here, we file it with the Regulatory Commission, and the deal closes this afternoon. I picked up the document, read it carefully, every word, every clause, taking my time. Richard was watching me, expression neutral, but eyes sharp. He'd barely acknowledged me in 3 years. Now he was studying me like I mattered. Sarah looked confused. Why was I in a suit? Why was I in this meeting? Why was everyone treating her driver husband like he was important? I set the document down. I have some concerns. The room temperature dropped 10 degrees. Patricia's smile stayed fixed. Concerns? About what specifically? The good faith clause. I'm not certain all parties acted in good faith throughout the transaction period. Richard leaned forward. Michael, this is a standard formality. The deal is sound. Both companies have been straightforward. There's no issue here. I'm not questioning the deal itself. I'm questioning whether I can certify good faith from all parties. What does that mean? David Park's voice had an edge. Money was on the line. His money. He didn't like uncertainty. I looked at Richard, held his gaze. Mr. Hartwell appointed me as trustee 3 months ago. During that time, I've served in good faith. I've held the documents securely. I've been available when needed. I've fulfilled every obligation. I've been professional, discreet, reliable, everything you asked for. And? Richard's voice was tight. And last night, at a private dinner with your executives, investors, and board members, you pointed at me and told the entire room that I was basically furniture. The table laughed, including my wife, who's sitting right there. I stood against that wall and absorbed that humiliation because that's my job as your driver. But it's not my job as trustee. And it raises serious questions about whether you've treated all parties in this transaction with the respect and good faith the law requires. Silence. Complete silence. You could hear the air conditioning, the distant sound of traffic outside, someone's phone vibrating in their pocket. Patricia recovered first. Professional, controlled. Mr. Chen, I understand you're upset about a personal slight, but that's completely separate from your fiduciary obligations as... Is it? I interrupted. Still calm, still professional. The clause doesn't specify which parties I'm certifying. It says all parties. I'm a party to this transaction. I was appointed trustee by Mr. Hartwell. I have legal standing here, legal authority, and I was treated with open contempt by the person who appointed me, in front of his entire leadership team. That's directly relevant to a good faith evaluation. Richard's jaw was tight. His hands were flat on the table, controlled anger. That was a joke, Michael. Poor taste, I'll admit, but not relevant to the business transaction. Then you won't mind if I take a few days to review the documents thoroughly and make sure I'm comfortable certifying everything. I want to be absolutely certain about what I'm signing. Given the importance of good faith to this transaction, I'm sure you understand the need for diligence. A few days? David Park stood up. Actually stood up. Face red, voice rising. The market conditions could shift in a few days. The regulatory window could close. We have stockholders expecting this deal. board members who've committed. This is an $800 million transaction, and you're going to tank it because your feelings got hurt at a dinner party? I stayed seated, kept my voice level, reasonable. I'm not tanking anything, Mr. Park. I'm exercising the discretion I was given when I agreed to serve as trustee. The documents explicitly grant me authority to evaluate good faith. That's what I'm doing. If you'd preferred a rubber stamp, someone who would just sign without thinking, you should have appointed one. You appointed someone with a law degree and legal credentials? This is what that looks like. One of the other lawyers, a younger man I didn't know, spoke up. Mr. Chen, with all due respect, you're reading the clause too broadly. The good faith requirement refers to the transaction parties, Tech Vista and Meridian, not to personal interactions between. Show me where it says that. I looked at him directly. Show me the language that limits the good faith evaluation to just the corporate entities and excludes personal conduct. He opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Patricia. Patricia put a hand on David's arm, gestured for him to sit. He did, but his face was still red, still angry. She turned back to me, voice careful, strategic. Michael, let's be realistic. Let's talk about what's actually happening here. What do you want? There it was, the negotiation. Because everything was a negotiation to these people. Every relationship, every interaction, everything had a price. I want time to review the documents properly, to make sure I fully understand everything I'm certifying. That's not unreasonable, given the magnitude of what I'm signing. How much time? A week. Absolutely not. Richard's voice was sharp, final. The deal closes today or it doesn't close at all. That's the agreement with Meridian. We have a closing deadline. They're not going to wait a week while you nurse your wounded pride. Then perhaps you should have thought about that before you called me furniture in front of your entire leadership team. Sarah finally spoke. Her voice was strained, uncomfortable. Michael, what are you doing? This is ridiculous. Just sign the paper. Don't destroy Richard's deal because you're upset about... About what? I turned to her. About being humiliated in public? About standing against a wall while everyone laughed at me? About watching my own wife laugh harder than anyone when her boss dismissed me as furniture? Which part of that should I not be upset about, Sarah? Her face flushed, red spreading from her neck to her cheeks. It was a joke, Michael. You're being overly sensitive. Jokes reveal what people really think, and what everyone in that room really thinks, including you, is that I don't matter, that I'm invisible, that I'm beneath notice, that I'm furniture. Well, now I'm the only thing standing between Richard and his $800 million acquisition. How's that for visibility? How's that for mattering? You're being petty. Her voice had an edge now, defensive. You're sabotaging. I'm exercising legal authority I was given. There's a difference. And, Richard's voice was tight, and last night, at a private dinner, you pointed at me and told a room full of executives, investors, and board members that I was basically furniture. The table laughed, including my wife. I stood there and absorbed that humiliation because that's my job as your driver. But it's not my job as trustee, and it raises questions about whether you've treated all parties in this transaction with the respect and good faith the law requires. Silence. Patricia recovered first. Mr. Chen, I understand you're upset about a personal slight, but that's completely separate from... Is it? I looked at her. The clause doesn't specify which parties I'm certifying. It says all parties. I'm a party to this transaction. I was appointed trustee. I have legal authority here. And I was treated with contempt by the person who appointed me. That's relevant to a good faith evaluation. Richard's jaw was tight. That was a joke. Poor taste, maybe, but not relevant to the business transaction. Then you won't mind if I take a few days to review the documents and make sure I'm comfortable certifying everything. A few days? David Park stood up. The market conditions could shift. The regulatory window could close. This is an $800 million deal, and you're going to tank it because your feelings got hurt? I stayed seated, kept my voice level. I'm not tanking anything. I'm exercising the discretion I was given when I agreed to serve as trustee. If you'd preferred a rubber stamp, you should have appointed one. You appointed someone with a law degree and legal authority. This is what that looks like. Patricia put a hand on David's arm, gestured for him to sit. He did, but his face was red. She turned back to me. Michael, let's be realistic. What do you want? There it was, the negotiation, because everything was a negotiation to these people. And I want time to review the documents properly. Make sure I understand everything I'm certifying. That's not unreasonable. How much time? A week. Absolutely not. Richard's voice was sharp. The deal closes today or it doesn't close at all. That's the agreement with Meridian. They're not going to wait a week. Then perhaps you should have thought about that before you called me furniture in front of your entire leadership team. Sarah finally spoke. Michael, what are you doing? This is ridiculous. Sign the paper. Don't destroy Richard's deal because what? Because I stood against a wall last night while everyone laughed at me. Including you? Her face flushed. It was a joke. Jokes reveal what people really think, and what everyone in that room really thinks is that I don't matter, that I'm invisible, that I'm beneath notice. Well, now I'm the only thing standing between Richard and his $800 million acquisition. How's that for visibility? Patricia held up both hands. Everyone, let's take a breath. Michael, you're right. What happened last night was inappropriate. Richard, do you want to address that? Richard looked at me. Really looked at me for the first time in 3 years. Saw me as a person instead of a service. You're right. It was inappropriate. I apologize. The words were correct. The tone was not. It was the apology of someone who didn't mean it, but knew it was tactically necessary. I appreciate that, I said. But an apology doesn't change my obligation as trustee. I need to be certain about what I'm certifying. And right now, I'm not certain. What would make you certain? Patricia asked. Time, review, reflection. We don't have time. Then we have a problem. Another silence. Longer this time. Everyone calculating. Everyone realizing that furniture had just become the most important person in the room. Finally, Patricia spoke. Can we have the room? Everyone except Michael? Richard looked like he wanted to argue but stood. David followed. The other lawyers. Sarah lingered, looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Confusion, anger, fear. Sarah, please, Patricia said gently. Sarah left. The door closed. Patricia sat back down across from me. Off the record, attorney to attorney, what's really happening here? Exactly what I said. I'm not comfortable certifying good faith when I've been treated like I'm invisible. You're a lawyer. You know this is about the business transaction, not personal dynamics. The clause doesn't make that distinction. It says good faith. Period. And I get to interpret what that means in my role as trustee. She studied me. You could tank this deal. I could. You'd also expose yourself to legal liability, breach of fiduciary duty, bad faith execution of your trustee responsibilities. Richard could sue you personally. He could try, but I'd have a strong defense. I was exercising legitimate discretion under an ambiguous contract clause. And discovery would be very interesting. Depositions where we discuss how Richard Hartwell treats the people who work for him, how he creates hostile environments, how he appointed someone as trustee and then publicly humiliated them. That's not a trial Richard wants. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, you're not going to sign today. No? What will it take? I haven't decided yet. That's honest, at least. She stood. I'll tell them you need 24 hours. That you're reviewing the documents carefully because you take your trustee obligations seriously. That's not a lie. You do seem to take them seriously. Can you commit to a decision by tomorrow morning? Yes. Good. I'll call you at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Have an answer ready. She walked to the door, paused, turned back. For what it's worth, the furniture comment was out of line. You didn't deserve that. But be careful how far you push this. Richard Hartwell is not someone you want as an enemy. Neither am I. She smiled slightly. I'm starting to realize that. She left. I sat alone in the conference room for a moment, then gathered my documents and walked out. Everyone was in the hallway, waiting, watching. Richard stepped forward. Michael, we need to resolve this. We will, tomorrow. I apologized. What more do you want? 24 hours to think. That's all I'm asking. This is my company, my deal. You're playing games with what? Your money? Your reputation? The thing is, Mr. Hartwell, you spent 3 years teaching me that I don't matter, that I'm furniture, and now you're upset that I'm acting like someone who matters. You can't have it both ways. I walked past him, past David, past the lawyers, past Sarah, who grabbed my arm. Michael, wait. I stopped, looked at her hand on my arm. She let go. What are you doing? She asked quietly. My job, as trustee. That's not your job. Your job is driving. I have 2 jobs, and right now, the trustee job matters more. You're going to cost Richard millions. Cost the company? Cost you your career, I finished. Is that what you're worried about? That if this deal falls apart, Richard will blame you for recommending me? She didn't answer. Didn't need to. Her face said everything. You laughed last night, I said quietly. Louder than anyone. When he called me furniture. When everyone treated me like a joke. You laughed. It was funny. It wasn't funny. It was cruel, and you chose his side, in front of everyone. You chose proximity to power over partnership with your husband. That's not fair. Neither is being called furniture. I walked away, out of the building, into the bright morning, into a world where suddenly furniture mattered very much. Chapter 3. The Silent Context. I didn't go home, went to a coffee shop instead. Sat in a corner booth with the trusty documents spread in front of me. People think power is loud, that it's about raising your voice, making demands, forcing compliance. That's not power, that's just noise. Real power is quiet, it's structural. It's being the person holding something everyone else needs. For 3 years, I'd been invisible. Richard talked on phone calls in the back seat like I wasn't there, discussed confidential deals, revealed sensitive information, negotiated terms, made promises, threatened competitors. He did all of this because he thought I was furniture, and furniture doesn't have ears, doesn't have memory, doesn't matter. But I'd heard everything, and I'd understood it, because I wasn't just a driver. I was a lawyer who'd spent 3 years listening to one of the biggest tech deals in recent history unfold in real time. I knew things Richard's own lawyers didn't know, because I'd heard the unguarded conversations, the moments between official meetings when Richard told David Park his real strategy, the late-night calls where he admitted concerns he'd never voice in a board meeting. I knew the Meridian deal was shakier than it appeared, that there were IP disputes Richard was hoping to bury until after closing, that the customer retention numbers Meridian had provided were optimistic at best, that Richard had personally promised Meridian's CEO a board seat that his own board hadn't approved yet. None of that was necessarily illegal. It was just business, the kind of aggressive negotiation that happened in every major deal. But it did raise questions about good faith. More importantly, it gave me leverage, because if I refused to sign, the deal fell apart. And if the deal fell apart publicly, with questions about the trustees' refusal to certify good faith, the market would ask why. Reporters would investigate. Details would emerge. Richard had built his reputation on being straightforward, honest, a Boy Scout CEO in an industry full of cowboys. That reputation was worth billions. It's why investors trusted him, why customers believed in TechVista, why employees stayed. If that reputation cracked, the damage would extend far beyond one failed acquisition. I wasn't planning to destroy Richard. I'm not vindictive. I don't want revenge. I just wanted recognition that I'm not furniture, that I'm a person, that the work I do matters, that the respect I've shown for 3 years deserves reciprocation. And I wanted Sarah to understand what she'd done, how it felt to stand against a wall while everyone laughed, including the person who promised to stand with me. My phone rang. Patricia Vance. Mr. Chen, I wanted to follow up on our conversation. It's been 2 hours. I said 24. I know, but I wanted to give you some additional context. Off the record, attorney to attorney. I'm listening. Richard Hartwell is not a bad person. He's demanding. He has high standards. He's built an incredible company, but he operates in a world where billions of dollars are on the line, where every decision has massive consequences. Sometimes he forgets that the people around him are human beings with feelings, not just functions to be performed. That's not an excuse. It's not. It's an explanation. And what I'm trying to explain is that last night wasn't personal. He wasn't targeting you specifically. He just doesn't see you clearly. You're in the background of his life, and he doesn't think about how his words land. That almost makes it worse. At least if he targeted me, it would mean he saw me. She was quiet for a moment. You're right. It does make it worse. Michael, I'm not asking you to sign the certification right now. I'm just asking you to consider the scope of what you're holding. $800 million, 2 companies. Thousands of employees who don't know their future is sitting in a folder in your apartment. Is one cruel comment worth all of that? Is my dignity worth nothing? Of course not, but there might be a middle ground, something that acknowledges what happened without destroying the deal. What are you suggesting? I don't know yet, but I'm suggesting we look for it. Together. You're a lawyer. I'm a lawyer. We can find a solution that works for everyone. The solution is simple. Richard apologizes, sincerely, and changes how he treats people. He did apologize this morning. No, he said the words, I apologize, because you told him it was tactically necessary. That's not the same as meaning it. She sighed. You're not wrong. Give me 24 hours. Let me talk to him. Let me help him understand what's at stake. Not just the deal, his entire way of operating. Can you give me that? That's what I already agreed to. I know. I'm asking you to come to tomorrow's conversation with an open mind. to be willing to find a solution instead of just exercising power because you can. I'll think about it. That's all I'm asking. Thank you, Michael." She hung up. I sat there, coffee growing cold, documents spread out, thinking about what Patricia had said. She wasn't wrong, I was exercising power, and part of me enjoyed it. After 3 years of being invisible, it felt good to be seen, to be needed, to matter. But that wasn't why I was doing this. I was doing this because something had broken last night, some illusion I'd been maintaining, some belief that if I just did my job well, stayed professional, remained loyal, eventually I'd be valued, respected, seen as more than furniture. Last night shattered that illusion, and once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. Richard would never see me. Sarah had chosen her alliance, and I had to decide, do I sign this paper and go back to being invisible, or do I use this moment to force a change? Not for revenge, for recognition, for the simple acknowledgement that I'm a person who deserves basic respect. I gathered the documents, went home. Sarah wasn't there, still at the office, probably doing damage control with Richard. I made dinner, ate alone, thought about tomorrow. My phone buzzed. Sarah. "We need to talk when I get home." Me. "Okay." She arrived at 9:30 p.m., dropped her bag, looked exhausted. That was the longest day of my career. I imagine it was. "Michael, what are you doing? Seriously, this isn't like you." "Maybe you don't know what I'm like." She sat across from me. "I know you're not vindictive. You're not someone who destroys deals because your feelings got hurt. So what's really happening?" You laughed. "What?" "Last night, when Richard called me furniture. You laughed. Harder than anyone. It was a joke, Michael, a stupid joke. You can't seriously be willing to tank an $800 million deal over a joke. It's not about the deal. It's about what that joke revealed. About how Richard sees me. About how you see me. I see you as my husband. I love you. But you laughed. In that moment, when you had to choose between defending me and fitting in with Richard's world, you chose Richard's world. You chose power over partnership." She looked away. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like?" Silence. "Sarah, for 3 years I've driven your boss around. I've been professional, discreet, reliable. I've listened to every phone call, every meeting, every conversation. I know things about Richard's business that his own board doesn't know. I've had opportunities to leak information, to undermine him, to benefit myself. I never did. Because I have integrity. Because I respect the trust placed in me. I know that. But last night, he pointed at me like I was furniture, and you laughed. That told me something important. My integrity doesn't matter, my professionalism doesn't matter, my loyalty doesn't matter. All that matters is hierarchy, and I'm at the bottom. You're not at the bottom. Then where am I, Sarah? Because from where I'm standing, I'm invisible. And the only reason anyone's talking to me now is because I have something they need. The moment I sign that paper, I go back to being furniture. And I don't know if I can do that anymore." She was crying now, quiet tears. "So what do you want? You want me to quit? You want Richard to grovel? What would make this okay?" "I want respect. Real respect. Not because I'm holding up a deal, just because I'm a person doing a job that matters." "He does respect you?" "No, he doesn't, and neither do you. Not really. You respect what I can do for you, but you don't respect me." "That's not true." "Prove it. Tomorrow morning, when Patricia calls, whose side will you be on? Mine or Richard's?" She didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Because we both knew the truth. She went to bed. I stayed up, reviewing documents, preparing for tomorrow. Not preparing to destroy the deal. Preparing to negotiate. To find the middle ground Patricia had mentioned. Because I didn't want to tank the acquisition. I didn't want to cost thousands of people their jobs. I didn't want to be vindictive. I just wanted to be seen. And tomorrow I'd find out if that was possible. Chapter 4. The next morning, Patricia called at exactly 9 a.m. "Good morning, Michael. Have you had time to review everything?" "I have. And?" "I'll sign the certification. On 3 conditions." I could hear her exhale. Relief, then caution. "What conditions?" "First, Richard issues a formal apology, not tactical, genuine, acknowledging that the furniture comment was inappropriate and that he values the work I do, in writing." "Agreed. What else?" "Second, I want a new employment contract. Same duties, but revised language that emphasizes my role as a professional driver, not personal property. Language that establishes mutual respect as a core term of employment." "That's reasonable. And third?" "Third, Sarah doesn't face any professional consequences for this situation. Her job is secure. Her relationship with Richard remains intact. This doesn't affect her career. Pause. You're protecting your wife? I'm protecting my marriage, or trying to. That's surprisingly generous, given the circumstances. I'm not trying to burn everything down. I'm trying to establish boundaries. I'll take this to Richard. Can you be at our office at 11? I'll be there. At 10:45, I put on the same suit, gathered the documents, drove to Morrison and Blake. This time, only 3 people were in the conference room: Patricia, Richard, and me. No investors, no other lawyers, no Sarah. Richard stood when I entered, extended his hand. Michael, thank you for coming. I shook it, sat. Patricia slid a document across the table. This is the formal apology. Richard drafted it personally. I read it carefully. To Michael Chen. Yesterday evening, I made a comment referring to you as furniture during a private dinner. The comment was inappropriate, disrespectful, and inexcusable. You have served as my driver with professionalism, discretion, and reliability for 3 years. You have consistently demonstrated integrity and competence. You deserved better than to be diminished in front of colleagues and guests. I apologize sincerely. I value the work you do and commit to treating you with the respect you have earned. Respectfully, Richard Hartwell. The language was good, specific, acknowledged the harm, made a commitment. Did you write this yourself? I asked Richard. Yes. Patricia helped with phrasing, but the words are mine. I mean them, Michael. I was wrong. What I said was wrong. How I treated you was wrong. I looked at him, really looked at him, trying to see if this was genuine or just another tactical move. His eyes were steady, no defiance, no resentment, just acknowledgement. Thank you, I said. This matters. Patricia slid another document over. The revised employment contract. Take your time reviewing it. I did. The language was better, more professional, included clauses about mutual respect, professional conduct, and clear boundaries around duties and expectations. This works, I said. And your third condition, Patricia said. Sarah's position is secure. Richard has already confirmed that with her this morning. Richard nodded. What happened between us has nothing to do with Sarah's performance. She's excellent at her job. This doesn't change that. I appreciate that. Can we resolve this now? Richard asked. Can you sign the certification? I pulled out the trustee document, read through the good faith clause one final time. All parties acted in good faith throughout the transaction period. Had they? Richard had apologized, had drafted a sincere acknowledgement of wrongdoing, had revised my contract, had protected Sarah. That was good faith, not perfect, not erasing what happened, but genuine effort to make it right. I signed, dated it, slid it across the table. Patricia took it, smiled. Thank you, Michael. I'll file this immediately. Richard extended his hand again. I shook it. I learned something this week, he said. I've been so focused on building the company, on the deals and the money and the growth, that I stopped seeing the people who make it all possible. You, Sarah, everyone who works behind the scenes while I get the credit. That's not leadership. That's blindness. And I'm sorry. Apology accepted. I'd like you to stay on as my driver, but I understand if you'd prefer to move on. I thought about it. I'll stay. With the new contract. With the understanding that this was a reset, a new foundation. Agreed. Patricia stood. I'll have copies of everything sent to you by end of day. The deal will close this afternoon. Thank you for your flexibility. I stood, gathered my documents. Richard walked me to the door. Michael, what you did, standing your ground, demanding respect, that took courage. A lot of people in your position would have just signed or tried to extort money. You didn't. You just wanted to be seen. That's rare and admirable. I just wanted basic respect. You got it, and you'll keep having it. I left the building, stood on the sidewalk in the morning sun, feeling lighter than I had in 3 years. Not because I'd won, because I'd been seen. Furniture doesn't negotiate, doesn't set conditions, doesn't make demands. People do. And for the first time in 3 years, Richard Hartwell saw me as a person. Chapter 5. The Aftermath. The deal closed at 3:17 p.m. that afternoon. I saw the news alert on my phone. TechVista acquires Meridian Systems in $800 million deal. Richard called me at 3:30. Michael, can you pick me up at the office? We're celebrating at Per Se tonight. 7 p.m. reservation. I'll be there at 6:45. Thank you. Different tone, different energy. Recognition that he was asking, not commanding. I picked him up at 6:45. He slid into the back seat. But this time, before I pulled away, he said, "Michael, you'll join us for dinner tonight. As a guest, not as a driver." I glanced in the rearview mirror. "Sir?" "Richard. Call me Richard. And I'm serious. You're part of why this deal happened. You should be there for the celebration." "I appreciate that, but—" "No buts. Sarah will be there, the executive team. You're invited. As a person, not as furniture." I drove him to Per Se, parked, started to wait in the car like I always did. He knocked on my window. "Coming?" I got out, followed him inside. The host led us to a private room where the celebration was already underway. Sarah was there. She looked surprised to see me walking in with Richard, not waiting in the car. David Park raised his glass. "The man who almost gave me a heart attack. Come in, come in." Richard gestured for quiet. "Everyone, I want to say something. This deal almost fell apart because I forgot something important. I forgot that the people who work around me aren't furniture. They're professionals with knowledge, skills, and dignity. Michael reminded me of that, and I'm grateful he did. So tonight, he's here as my guest, not as my driver, as someone who played a crucial role in making this happen." Applause. Genuine applause. I sat next to Sarah. She squeezed my hand under the table. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. "Are you?" "Yes. You stood up for yourself. You demanded respect. I should have done that. Should have defended you. I'm sorry I didn't." "Why didn't you?" She was quiet for a moment. "Because I was scared. Scared that defending you would cost me my job, my position, my access to this world, and I chose wrong. I chose safety over partnership, and I'm sorry." "What changes now?" "I do. I see it now. How I've been acting. How I've been treating you like you're less important because your job is less visible. That stops now." "Okay." We ate, drank, celebrated a deal I'd almost tanked and then saved. At the end of the night, Richard stood to leave. "Michael, tomorrow we start fresh. New contract, new understanding. Sound good?" "Sounds good." I drove him home, then drove Sarah home. We didn't talk much, just sat with the weight of what had happened, what had changed. When we got home, she said, "I'm going to do better, be better, I promise. I believe you." And I did, because the furniture comment had shattered something for both of us. Some illusion about hierarchy and importance and value. Now we both saw clearly, respect isn't about position. It's about recognition. It's about seeing people fully, not just the function they serve. Chapter 6. The Return. The next Monday, I showed up at Richard's building at 7 a.m., same as always, professional, on time. But when I arrived, something was different. The security guard nodded. "Morning, Mr. Chen." Mr. Chen, not Michael, not the driver. Mr. Chen. I went to the executive garage, pulled the car around. Richard came down at 7:03. "Morning, Michael." "Morning, Richard." He slid into the back seat, but before I pulled away, he said, "I've been thinking about what happened, about how I operate. I'm making changes, starting with how I treat the people who work with me, not for me. You listening to my calls the past 3 years, that was my choice, my lack of discretion. But I want you to know, I trust you. I've always trusted you. I just never said it. I appreciate that. And if you ever hear something in those calls that concerns you, ethically, legally, whatever, I want you to tell me. Don't just absorb it. Your perspective matters. Your judgment matters. Use it." "Okay. I'm serious. You're not furniture. You're not just a driver. You're someone with a law degree, with experience, with insight. I'd be an idiot not to use that." "You want me to be a lawyer again?" "I want you to be whatever you want to be. If you're happy driving, keep driving. If you want to transition to something else, legal, operations, whatever, let's talk about it. You've earned options." I pulled into traffic. Thought about that. Options, agency, recognition. "I'll think about it," I said. We drove in silence for a few minutes. Then Richard's phone rang. A board member. He answered on speaker like always. But this time, mid-conversation, he said, "Hold on, Jim. Michael's here. He knows this deal better than anyone. Michael, Jim's asking about the Meridian integration timeline. What do you think?" I glanced in the rearview mirror. He was looking at me, actually asking. "The integration will take 9 months minimum," I said. "The IP issues need to be resolved first. Customer migration is secondary. Rushing it will create problems. You hear that, Jim? 9 months. Michael's right. We'll plan accordingly. After the call ended, Richard said, "See? That's what I mean. You have valuable perspective. Don't hide it." Over the next few weeks, things changed. Subtly at first, then more dramatically. Richard started asking my opinion, including me in conversations, introducing me to clients not as my driver, but as Michael Chen, who's been integral to my operations. Other executives noticed, started treating me differently, not as invisible staff, but as someone Richard valued. Sarah noticed too. "People are asking me about you," she said one night. "About your background, about what you do. You're not invisible anymore." "Good. Are you going to stay as a driver?" "I don't know yet. Richard offered me options. I'm thinking about what I want." "What do you want?" I thought about it. "I want to do work that matters, work where I'm seen, where I contribute meaningfully. Whether that's driving or something else, I haven't decided." "You could go back to law." "Maybe, but not the kind of law I was doing before. That nearly killed me." "Then find a different kind. You're good at this, Michael, at seeing what others miss, at understanding complex situations, at staying calm under pressure. That's valuable anywhere." 3 months after the furniture comment, Richard called me into his office. First time I'd ever been in his office outside of driving him there. "Michael, I want to propose something. We're setting up a new internal legal compliance role. Someone who reviews our deals, our contracts, our operations. Make sure we're acting in good faith, not just legally, but ethically. Someone who can see what others miss because they're too close to it. I want you for that role." "I'm not qualified. I haven't practiced law in 7 years." "You're more qualified than you think. You've listened to every deal I've made for 3 years. You know how we operate. You know where the gaps are. You know what good faith looks like and what it doesn't. That's exactly what I need." "What about driving?" "We'll hire someone else. You've earned better than driving me around?" I thought about it. "Can I think about it?" "Take a week. Talk to Sarah. Talk to Patricia. She thinks you'd be great at this. But know this, I'm serious. And I'm offering it because you've proven you have integrity. Judgment, the courage to speak up when something's wrong, that's rare and valuable." I took the week. Talked to Sarah. Talked to Patricia. Talked to myself. In the end, I accepted. Not because it paid more, though it did. Not because it was more prestigious, though it was. I accepted because it was work that mattered. Work where I'd be seen. Work where my voice would be heard. And because it proved something important. Furniture doesn't have a career, doesn't have growth, doesn't have value beyond function, but people do, and I was a person. Finally. Completely. Undeniably. Chapter 7. The Lesson. 6 months after the furniture comment, I was sitting in on a board meeting. My new role gave me access to high-level discussions. My job was to listen, evaluate, flag concerns. Richard was presenting the Q3 results, strong performance, good growth. The Meridian integration was ahead of schedule. During the break, David Park approached me. "Michael, I wanted to apologize. For that night. For laughing when Richard made that comment. It was wrong." "I appreciate that. You taught us all something important. About how we treat people, about assumptions we make based on job titles. I've been thinking about it a lot, trying to do better." "That's all any of us can do. Recognize when we're wrong and try to be better." He nodded, walked away. After the meeting, Richard and I walked back to his office. "You're doing good work," he said. "The compliance framework you built, it's already paying off. We caught that vendor issue before it became a problem, saved us potentially millions." "That's the job." "It's more than a job. You're changing how we operate, making us better, more thoughtful, more ethical. That matters." We reached his office. He paused at the door. "Can I ask you something? Why didn't you destroy me when you had the power, when I'd humiliated you? You could have tanked the Meridian deal, could have leaked information, could have burned everything down. Why didn't you?" I thought about it. "Because I'm not vindictive, and because destroying you wouldn't have fixed anything. It would have just been mutual destruction. I didn't want revenge. I wanted recognition. There's a difference. Most people don't see that difference. Most people haven't spent 3 years being invisible while listening to everything. It teaches you something about power, about when to use it and when to hold it." "What did it teach you?" "That real power isn't about volume. It's not about forcing compliance or burning things down. Real power is structural. It's being the person who holds what everyone needs. and knowing when to release it and when to hold it. He smiled. You're wasted in compliance. You should be in strategy. One step at a time. Fair enough. He went into his office. I went to mine. Smaller office, but mine, with my name on the door, with a title that mattered, Director of Legal Compliance. Sarah met me for lunch that day. How was the board meeting? Good. David apologized. Really? Really. People are learning. Slowly, but they are learning. You did that. You taught them. I just demanded basic respect. They did the learning themselves. Still, I'm proud of you, and I'm sorry again, for laughing, for choosing wrong. I know, and we're past it. We're building something better now. We are. That night, I got a text from Patricia Vance. Saw your work on the vendor compliance issue. Impressive. If you ever want to leave Tech Vista, call me. We'd love to have you at Morrison & Blake. I smiled. Didn't respond immediately. Just sat with the knowledge that I had options, that I was valued, that I'd gone from furniture to someone firms wanted to recruit. Not because of revenge, not because I'd destroyed anyone, but because I'd stood my ground, demanded respect, and proven I was worth respecting. Chapter 8. Control Without Noise. A year after the furniture comment, Tech Vista was having its annual company retreat. All-hands meeting. Celebration of growth. Team building. I was there in my compliance role, sitting at a table with other directors, part of the leadership team now. Richard was giving his keynote speech, talking about the company's values, about growth, about integrity. Then he told a story. A year ago, I made a terrible mistake. I was at a dinner with executives and investors, and I made a comment about someone on my team. I called him furniture. The table laughed. It seemed funny at the time, but it wasn't funny. It was cruel, and it taught me something important about leadership. The room was silent, everyone listening. The person I insulted, Michael Chen, who many of you know now as our Director of Legal Compliance, he had every right to destroy me. He had power I didn't know about. He could have tanked our biggest deal, could have exposed our operations, could have burned everything down. But he didn't. Instead, he demanded something simple: respect, recognition, the basic acknowledgement that he mattered. Richard looked directly at me. Michael, would you stand? I stood, uncomfortable with the attention, but willing to accept it. This man taught me that real power isn't about noise. It's not about forcing compliance or burning bridges. It's about knowing when to use your leverage and when to build something better. He had the power to destroy me. Instead, he used it to improve me, to improve all of us. And I'm grateful. Applause. Genuine applause. I sat down. Sarah squeezed my hand under the table. After the keynote, people came up to me, thanked me, said the story resonated, said they'd learned something. One of the new hires, a young woman from operations, said, I read about you, about what happened. It's inspiring that you stood up for yourself. I just demanded basic respect. That's harder than it sounds when you're lower in the hierarchy. When people treat you like you're invisible, standing up takes courage. It takes knowing your worth and refusing to accept less. I'll remember that. At the end of the retreat, Richard asked me to walk with him. How are you feeling? About the job? About where you are? Good. Really good. This is meaningful work. I'm making a difference. You are. And I want you to know you have a future here, whatever you want it to be. If you want to stay in compliance, great. If you want to move to strategy, legal, operations, whatever, it's yours. You've earned it. Thank you. And Michael, thank you for not destroying me when you could have, for teaching me something I needed to learn about power, about people, about leadership. You're welcome. We walked back to the main building, past groups of employees, past tables of food and celebration, and I realized something. I wasn't invisible anymore. Hadn't been for a year. People nodded when I passed, said hello, acknowledged me. Not because I was powerful in the traditional sense, but because I'd proven something important. Silence isn't weakness, invisibility isn't powerlessness, and furniture can speak when it needs to. I'd spent 3 years being underestimated, 3 years hearing everything while mattering to no one, 3 years absorbing information, building context, understanding how everything worked. And when the moment came, when one cruel comment revealed the truth about how I was seen, I didn't explode, didn't rage, didn't burn everything down. I just used the power I'd quietly accumulated, the structural power of being the person holding what everyone needed, and I used it not for destruction, but for construction, for building a better relationship, a better understanding, a better future. That's real power. Not volume, not force, just timing, structure, and the wisdom to know when to release your leverage and when to hold it. Epilogue. 2 years later. I'm sitting in my office, corner office now, Vice President of Legal and Compliance, significant salary, significant influence. Richard stops by, knocks even though the door is open. Got a minute? Always. He sits. I'm thinking about the next acquisition, similar size to Meridian, but I want to do it differently this time, more transparent, more ethical, no games. Can you lead the compliance review? Of course. And Michael, I need you to do what you do best. Listen, watch. Tell me when something's wrong, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's me who's wrong. That's the job. It's more than a job, it's trust. And I trust you completely. He stands to leave, pauses. You know what I think about sometimes? That dinner, that comment, how everything could have gone differently? How so? If you'd been vindictive, if you destroyed the deal, destroyed me, everything would have collapsed. But you weren't. You just demanded respect. And because of that, we're both better off. The company's better off. Everyone's better off. Good faith works both ways. It does. Thanks for teaching me that. After he leaves, I sit at my desk, look out the window at the city below. Sarah's photo is on my desk. We're better now, stronger. She learned too, about loyalty, about partnership, about choosing right over easy. My phone buzzes. Patricia Vance. Coffee next week? Want to talk about a potential opportunity? I smile. Still getting recruited. Still valuable. Still growing. But I'm not leaving. Not yet. Because I'm building something here. Something that started with one humiliating comment and turned into a lesson everyone needed to learn. People laugh at who they think can't respond. Power doesn't need volume, just timing. And the wisdom to know when to speak and when to stay silent. For 3 years, I was furniture, silent, invisible, absorbing everything. Then, when it mattered most, the furniture spoke, and everyone listened. The end.